Imagine gazing down from 10,000 feet.
You see nothing but sky.
And then, in the distance, you see a landscape. And in this landscape, there is no factory. There is no runway. There is no sign of war at all. Instead, you see another American suburb. There are white houses with red roofs. There are trees planted neatly in rows. There is fresh laundry blowing in the wind, hung out to dry behind picket fences. There is a man cutting his grass. There is a woman sunbathing in her backyard. There are cars driving lazily down tree-lined avenues. It is 1943. The Second World War is raging across the globe. And you, a Japanese reconnaissance pilot, are flying over the California coast, looking for the source of the American war machine. You have found nothing.
Just another sleepy suburban town.
But you are wrong. You have found everything. Below that suburban paradise, hidden away behind acres of chicken wire and painted burlap, is the Lockheed aircraft factory in Burbank, California. And inside, something impossible is happening. This is the story of how 100,000 workers, many of them women, never before trusted to build machines of war, were building a P-38 Lightning fighter plane every 63 minutes. And this is the story of how they made their factory completely disappear, until the enemy finally noticed it was gone.
December 7, 1941.
The Imperial Japanese Navy attacks Pearl Harbor. The American Pacific Fleet is destroyed.
Panic grips the West Coast.
Military leaders in Washington study a map and realize the horrifying threat. Just off the coast of California, Japanese submarines are spotted. In February 1942, a Japanese submarine is spotted off the coast of Santa Barbara and fires shells at an oil storage installation. The next night, mistaken reports of enemy planes prompt the Battle of Los Angeles, with anti-aircraft guns firing wildly into the night sky at non-existent enemy planes. The threat is very real. The invasion of American soil is considered possible. And in Burbank, California, just north of Los Angeles, is one of the most valuable assets in America, the Lockheed Aircraft Corporation. This factory has been here since 1928. It is massive. It is well known. And before the war, its location was proudly publicized. Now, it is a target painted on the map for any Japanese bomber pilot who can navigate across the Pacific. The P-38 Lightning being built inside those walls is no ordinary fighter. Designed by Lockheed's legendary Skunk Works team led by Clarence Kelly Johnson, the P-38 is the most advanced interceptor of its era. Its twin-boom design, counter-rotating propellers, and nose-mounted armament make it a revolutionary weapon. It is the first American fighter to exceed 400 miles per hour in level flight. Its range, over 1,300 miles with drop tanks, will allow it to escort bombers deep into enemy territory, something no other fighter can yet do. The P-38 will become the mount of America's top two aces, Richard Bong with 40 victories, and Thomas Maguire with 38. It will earn the nickname Der Gabelschwanz Teufel from the Germans, the fork-tailed devil.
But first, it must be built.
And after Pearl Harbor, building it becomes a race against time. The United States military needs thousands of these machines. They need them now. The man tasked with protecting this production is Colonel John Omer. He is an amateur magician. And he is about to perform the greatest disappearing trick of the 20th century. Omer had seen something in England the previous year. Fake factories built in open fields to draw German bombs away from real targets. He now proposes the opposite. Instead of building a fake factory somewhere else, he will make the real factory disappear entirely. To do this, he turns to the one place in America that specializes in creating illusions, Hollywood.
From Disney, Paramount, MGM, Warner Brothers, and 20th Century Fox, Omer recruits an army of set designers, painters, prop masters, and artists.
Their job, to turn a sprawling industrial complex into a peaceful suburban neighborhood. Over the factory buildings, workers erect a massive framework of poles and cables. Across this framework, they drape acres of chicken wire and heavy burlap, coarse fabric typically used for sacks. This canvas is then painted in varying shades of green and brown to resemble rolling hills and farmland. But a flat, painted surface would never fool an observer from the air.
It needs dimension. It needs depth.
It needs to look real.
So the Hollywood artists get to work.
They build dozens of fake houses on top of the camouflage netting. These are not simple painted plywood cutouts. They are three-dimensional structures with pitched roofs, windows, and even chimneys. The roofs are painted red, just like real California suburban homes. They construct fake barns and silos. They create entire fake farms, complete with plaster farm animals, cows, horses, and sheep, strategically placed in fake fields. The animals are moved regularly to maintain the illusion of life.
Then come the trees, hundreds of them.
Each tree is a work of art in itself, a frame of chicken wire, covered in burlap, and adorned with thousands of individual leaves made from chicken feathers. The feathers are spray painted in varying shades of green and brown and carefully attached to the wire branches.
From the air, these trees cast shadows.
They sway slightly in the breeze.
They look real.
The factory's runway, a long, unmistakable ribbon of concrete, is painted over to look like farmland. Strips of grass are burned into the adjacent fields to create the appearance of crop rotation. The runway itself is disguised to resemble a country road lined with fake trees. Parking lots, which from the air would appear as large gray rectangles, are painted to look like fields of alfalfa. Nearby roads are painted green to blend with the landscape. But the most ingenious part of the deception is the movement. A static scene can be photographed and studied. A living scene requires constant activity. So the magician, Colonel Omer, adds his finest touches. Fake cars are parked on the fake streets. These are not ordinary props. They are inflatable rubber automobiles that can be moved and repositioned daily. Some are even mounted on hidden tracks and moved back and forth along the streets using a system of trapdoors and catwalks, simulating residents heading to work and returning home. Clotheslines are strung between the fake houses, and real laundry is hung out each morning and taken down each evening. Factory workers are assigned to this task. Their job, to make the neighborhood look occupied. Actors are hired to appear in the fake yards.
They mow fake lawns. They sit in fake gardens.
They walk their dogs along fake paths. From 10,000 feet, it is utterly convincing. And what about the factory workers themselves? How do 94,000 employees enter and exit this hidden world every day?
The answer lies beneath the surface.
Hidden walkways and tunnels connect the factory buildings. Workers move through these passages, invisible from above. The air ducts for the factory are disguised as fire hydrants and park benches. Above them, the illusion holds. Below them, the war machine operates at full throttle. And what a machine it is. The numbers are almost incomprehensible. At its peak, the Lockheed Burbank plant employs 94,000 workers. They work in 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
The plant never closes. The lights never go out.
These workers are not the men you might expect to find in an aircraft factory. By 1943, most able-bodied men are overseas, fighting. The assembly lines are now staffed by women. They are housewives, secretaries, waitresses, and actresses. They are mothers, sisters, and daughters. They are teenagers who lied about their age to serve their country. They are grandmothers who remember the First World War. They have never held a rivet gun. They have never read a blueprint. They have never been inside a factory. But they are about to become the most efficient aircraft production force in American history. One of them is Mary Jane Strickland. She is 83 years old when she shares her memories, but in 1943, she is a young woman trained to work on the P-38. She remembers the camouflage. She remembers thinking it was all rather funny. Because you walk out the door and you're right on the main street in Burbank, she recalls. It's like, who didn't know it was there? It was like a big secret that was not a secret at all. But from the air, it was a different story. Pilots trained to take off from the hidden runway sometimes couldn't find their way back. The camouflage was so effective that they had to land elsewhere. Another worker, Bob Klinger, is 86 when he remembers those years. It had been a well-known factory before the war began, he says. So I guess they figured, well, the Japanese know it's there, but we'll camouflage it and they won't be sure what they got. And so the work continues.
Day after day. Night after night.
The factory floor is a symphony of noise and motion.
Rivet guns chatter. Metal sheets clang. Conveyor belts hum.
Overhead cranes glide silently, carrying massive wing sections and engine nacelles from station to station. The P-38 is a complex machine. Each aircraft requires thousands of parts, hundreds of hours of labor, and the coordination of dozens of specialized teams. In 1941, building a single P-38 took weeks. But by 1943, something remarkable has happened. The women of the Burbank plant have mastered their craft. The production line has been refined to a science. In February 1942, Lockheed management makes a bold decision. They need to double production. They design 3 new mechanized conveyor lines. They build them in just 9 days. During the changeover, the old assembly line is moved outdoors so that production never stops. Not for one single day. The new system works beyond anyone's expectations.
P-38s now move down the line with relentless precision.
At each station, workers add their piece. A wing panel here, an engine mount there, a section of wiring in the next bay. The women work quickly, efficiently, and with growing pride. They know what they are building. They see the finished aircraft rolled out onto the hidden runway, engines tested, guns calibrated, and then, flown away to the war. Some of those aircraft will carry their own husbands, brothers, and sons into combat. And the numbers begin to climb. From weeks per aircraft, the production time drops to days. From days, it drops to hours. By mid-1943, the impossible has been achieved.
The Lockheed Burbank plant is now producing a complete P-38 Lightning fighter plane every 63 minutes.
To understand what that number means, consider the aircraft itself. The P-38 Lightning is not a simple machine. It contains over 300,000 individual parts. It has two massive Allison V1710 engines, each producing 1,425 horsepower. Its wingspan is 52 feet. Its length is 37 feet. It carries 4.50 caliber machine guns and a 20mm cannon in its nose.
Every 63 minutes, another one rolls off the line.
This is not just production. This is a miracle of industrial warfare. By the time the war ends, Lockheed will have built over 10,000 P-38s. Add in the B-17 bombers they are also building under license for Boeing, and the total reaches more than 19,000 aircraft. Nearly 6% of all American warplanes built between 1941 and 1945 come from this one hidden factory. But while the production line hums below, a different kind of battle is being fought above. The camouflage is working. No Japanese bomber ever attacks the Burbank plant. No reconnaissance aircraft ever photographs the factory and reports its location.
The illusion holds.
But the enemy notices something else. They notice the P-38. In the skies over Europe, German pilots encounter this strange twin-boomed fighter and learn to fear it. They call it Der Gabelschwanz-Teufel, the forked-tailed devil. Its nose-mounted guns allow it to hit targets from up to 1,000 yards, far beyond the effective range of wing-mounted weapons. Its speed and climb rate match or exceed the best the Luftwaffe can send against it. In the Pacific, the P-38 becomes legendary. Its long range allows it to fly missions no other fighter can attempt. It escorts bombers to distant Japanese bases.
It hunts enemy shipping.
It dominates the Zero in a dogfight. And on April 18, 1943, a flight of P-38s executes one of the most famous missions of the war. Flying 600 miles from Guadalcanal, they intercept and shoot down the aircraft carrying Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the commander of the Japanese Combined Fleet and the architect of Pearl Harbor. The P-38 is winning battles. It is killing admirals. It is becoming a symbol of American air power. And the enemy begins to ask, where are these planes coming from? Japanese intelligence knows the P-38 is built by Lockheed. They know Lockheed is in Burbank, California. They have pre-war maps, pre-war photographs, pre-war records. They know exactly where the factory should be. So they send reconnaissance aircraft. They study aerial photographs. They search for the source of the fork-tailed devil. And they find nothing. Where the factory should be, there is only a quiet suburb. White houses, red roofs,
laundry on the line, cars on the streets,
farmers in their fields.
It makes no sense.
The intelligence is clear. The factory exists. But the photographs show no factory.
The pilots report no factory.
The analysts conclude there must be an error. Perhaps Lockheed moved. Perhaps the intelligence is outdated. Perhaps the P-38 is being built somewhere else. The enemy gives up. They mark the Burbank location as inconclusive and move on to other targets.
Below the burlap, the women keep working. 63 minutes. Another P-38 63 minutes.
Another forked-tailed devil ready for war. But the crisis is not only about being found by the enemy. There is another threat, one that comes from within. In 1943, the P-38 encounters a terrifying problem. In high-speed dives, the aircraft begins to shake violently.
The controls lock up. Pilots cannot pull out.
Several are killed. The phenomenon is called compressibility. At transonic speeds, air flowing over the wings creates shock waves that disrupt control surfaces.
The aircraft becomes a falling brick.
In the Pacific, Major Richard Bong, America's top ace, is pushing his P-38 to its limits. He is hunting Japanese aircraft, racking up victory after victory. But every time he dives, he risks entering the deadly zone where the controls freeze and the plane refuses to respond. The problem threatens to ground the entire fleet. The fork-tailed devil, it seems, has a fatal flaw. Back in Burbank, the engineers at Lockheed Skunk Works work frantically on a solution. They design dive brakes, small panels that deploy from the wings to slow the aircraft and prevent compressibility. They test them in wind tunnels. They install them on new P-38J models rolling off the line.
The solution works, but it takes time.
And time is the one thing the factory cannot afford to lose. Every 63 minutes, a P-38 is born. Every 63 minutes, that P-38 must be ready for war.
The turning point comes not on a battlefield, but on a factory floor.
It comes not from a general or a pilot, but from the women who have never built anything before in their lives. Mary Jane Strickland and her colleagues are not just assembling aircraft, they are solving problems, they are improving processes. They are finding ways to do their jobs faster, better, and more efficiently than anyone expected. When the dive brake modification is needed, it is the factory workers who figure out how to install them without slowing production. When engine upgrades are required, they adapt. When new models are introduced, the P-38J, the P-38L, they learn the new systems and keep the line moving. By 1944, the Burbank plant is producing the P-38L, the most advanced version of the Lightning. It has 1,600 horsepower engines, zero-length rocket launchers, and the ability to carry 4,000 pounds of ordnance. It is a flying weapons platform, capable of destroying enemy aircraft, bombing ground targets, and photographing enemy positions, all on the same mission. And still, the camouflage holds. The women work their shifts, passing through the hidden tunnels, emerging into the fake suburb at the end of the day. Some of them live in actual houses just blocks away from the factory. They know the secret. Their neighbors know the secret. The entire town of Burbank knows the secret. But from the air, the secret remains safe. In 1944, the Burbank Chamber of Commerce publishes a book called the Burbank Community Book. In it, there is a passage titled Camouflage Galore, detailing the entire operation. The factory's disguise is so effective, and the threat of attack so diminished by this point, that the secret can now be shared, at least with the folks back home. The women of Lockheed have another name for themselves. The nation calls them Rosie the Riveter. But Mary Jane Strickland and her colleagues know they are something more. They are the Invisible Army.
The forgotten heroes.
The ones who built the weapons but never fired a shot. By the end of 1944, the P-38 has become the backbone of American air power in 2 theaters.
In Europe, it escorts bombers all the way to Berlin.
In the Pacific, it hunts Japanese aircraft from New Guinea to the Philippines. America's top 2 aces, Richard Bong and Thomas Maguire, fly P-38s exclusively. Between them, they account for 78 enemy aircraft destroyed. And every single one of those P-38s began its life in Burbank, California. Every single one was built, at least in part, by women who had never held a rivet gun before the war. Every single one rolled off a line that produced a new aircraft every 63 minutes.
The factory never stops. The women never stop. The war demands it. In August 1945, the war ends. Japan surrenders.
The P-38, which has fought from the first days of American involvement to the last, is finally at peace. But the story does not end there. On August 6, 1945, the same day the atomic bomb is dropped on Hiroshima, Major Richard Bong takes off from Burbank in a Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star, a new jet fighter. He is testing the aircraft when it malfunctions on takeoff.
The plane crashes.
America's greatest ace, with 40 victories to his name, is killed at the age of 24. He never fired a shot in combat in that aircraft. The P-38 he flew to glory, the plane built by the women of Burbank, is retired shortly after the war. Of the more than 10,000 built, fewer than 2 dozen survive today. Only about half a dozen are still flyable. The Lockheed Burbank plant continues operating after the war.
It builds the U-2 spy plane, the SR-71 Blackbird, and the F-117 Nighthawk.
It remains a center of aerospace innovation for decades. In 1992, the facility finally closes. The runways become part of Bob Hope Airport. The factory buildings are torn down. The site is now a sprawling shopping center.
The ultimate disappearing act.
The camouflage that once hid the factory from enemy eyes is long gone. The burlap rotted away decades ago. The fake houses were dismantled. The feather trees were thrown out. For years after the war, scraps of the disguise could still be seen rotting above the factory. Then even those disappeared. But the legacy remains. The women who built the P-38 never sought recognition. They did their jobs, went home, and got on with their lives. Mary Jane Strickland became a founder of the Burbank Historical Society, preserving the memory of those years.
Bob Klinger remembered the work, the camaraderie, and the sheer determination of it all.
We were pretty busy doing our own thing, he said. They did not think of themselves as heroes. They were just doing what needed to be done. But historians know better. The P-38 Lightning was not just a great aircraft. It was a weapon that changed the course of the war. It provided the long-range escort that bombers desperately needed. It destroyed the enemy's best pilots and most valuable leaders. It dominated the skies over Europe and the Pacific alike. And it was built by an army of civilians, housewives and grandmothers, teenagers and old men, Hollywood artists and factory hands, who worked together to produce a miracle. 100,000 workers.
10,000 aircraft. 63 minutes per plane.
And an entire factory that vanished from the sky. When the enemy finally noticed the factory was gone, it was too late. The fork-tailed devil was already in the air.
And it was coming for them.
The story of the Lockheed Burbank plant and its angels in overalls is just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. It is a story of ingenuity and deception, of sacrifice and determination, of ordinary people doing extraordinary things when their country called.
The factory is gone.
The camouflage has faded. The women who worked those shifts are now mostly gone as well.
But the P-38 Lightning remains.
In museums, in private collections, and in the handful that still take to the air at air shows, the fork-tailed devil flies on. And with it flies the memory of the 100,000 workers who built one every 63 minutes, hidden from the enemy, but never hidden from history. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to World War II Records as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.